Welcome back to another episode of Mindset Mastery with Mindset Mary. Today, I am thrilled to introduce a truly remarkable guest. Barry Goldstein is an Grammy award winning producer and author, songwriter, composer, and the creative genius behind soundscapes of renowned figures like Dr. Joe Dispenza, Dr. Daniel Amen, Dave Asprey, and many more. Barry has also composed and produced for television, film, major record labels, and top 10 recording artists. Barry's talents extend beyond mere music production. He has a gifted ability to craft melodies that hold the power to heal both the hearts and minds of people. And his music is being used in hospitals, hospices, cancer centers, and medical practices. His work is truly remarkable, and I am so excited that I get to share him with you today. Barry, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk to you today. Can't
Thank
see
you.
what unfolds.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Barry, how did your journey as an artist begin? Like, I'm really curious about what drew you into the world of sound and music.
Well, if you can see that guitar behind me, that cherry sunburst guitar. So my dad bought me that guitar when I was 14 years old. And, I grew up in the Bronx in New York City, definitely not a wealthy family. And my dad, that particular day, was planning on buying me a much less expensive guitar than that beautiful Gibson Les Paul that's behind me. And so when the salesperson came out and we were about to buy a Fender Telecaster guitar, he said, "I have one more guitar to show you." And he literally brought that same guitar out in this hot pink plush velvet interior in the guitar case. It was the 70s. So it was a little while back. And, of course, my eyes lit up. That was the guitar. Like a lot of my inspirations had Carlos Santana, Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin. And my dad, I think, kind of knew that he was sunk because, there was no way he was not going to buy me that guitar. But he did make me make a promise in that moment that if he bought me that guitar, that I was going to stick with music. So, of course, as a 14-year-old kid, I agreed to that and didn't realize like the levity of the promise in that moment that was going on, where it wasn't really just a promise, it was more of a rite of passage, where my dad was believing in me so heavily that he was willing to actually spend money that my parents didn't have. That's how deep his faith was in me. So that promise for many years wove through as I became a professional music producer and, coming up through the ranks and being in New York. And, at first, obviously you're looking to get more gigs and more jobs. And I would look at that guitar and like the dollar signs was kind of like flash in front of me, like, wow, that could be a whole month's rent, right? Or that could pay for the next few months or equipment or whatever it was. But I always remember that promise that I made to my dad, and that's really, that promise has just echoed through every stage of my career, as an artist, as a music producer, and what it takes to commit to something and have many different rites of passage that have weaved through my career, as like from co-producing a Grammy award winning track with Les Paul for best rock instrumental, to all the way on the other side of that, being in Billboard's top 10 for healing music with Dr. Daniel Amen. They're very different. So I've had to take a lot of left and right turns and create these rites of passage that would help me share my music in different ways.
Yeah. And like, tell me about Barry, like when you were coming up in the music, like we all know that the music industry is a tough industry. Not everybody, most people don't last. Most people can't, stay in it long enough to find success. How
Mhm.
did that translate for you in your journey? Was it a journey of like difficulty and struggle, rejections, or was it a simple and easy journey where people just saw your gifts and opportunities opened for you. Like, what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably like a mixed bag of nuts with that, just because you really do have to have tough skin in the music business, regardless even of your amount of talent. You hear these stories all the time, even from Ed Sheeran, about rejection and people not recognizing the talent initially or not hearing, what we're hearing as artists. So I think you definitely have to have, you know, a, a tough, hard shell in terms of it has to be really more than a career for you. It has to be a way of life. And if you think of it in that perspective, where when you commit to something and you say that it's a lifelong commitment, it's this is what I'm going to do for the rest of your life, it takes quite a bit of pressure off you because you don't have a time constraint. Well, I have to do this by the time I'm this. So it moves out of being a career or a job and it moves into being a mission. And I think that's the biggest distinction. I was always treating it like a mission, like this is what I'm going to do, this is what I was meant to do, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And no really doesn't become an option for you. It just moves into how you can adapt and learn from from what others may view as failures. They're really just stepping stones to knowing what you want to do, what you want to focus on. And it's constantly coming back to awareness, where you bring your awareness and your focus, that's where energy goes. So as I was always trying new things out there, I would always kind of see, okay, well, let's see how this is received. Let's see who resonates with this. So even before I was really moving into the healing aspects of music, which is, another whole chapter, I always kind of looked at it from a very entrepreneurial mindset, and always using my failures and successes as next steps in my story. And as you succeed, you build your story with that and you utilize that to amplify how that can open doors, how it can open more ears for you in the music business. So you probably have heard that you're only as good as your last hit, or
Yes.
you're only as good as the last thing you do. And I think that's a lesson that is like well learned, even in my career in this day and age. You constantly have to be cutting edge. You constantly have to look for new ways to reach people. And you have to go into it with that same energy as that 14-year-old kid who is playing that guitar for the first time. Like nothing and you're here to learn and be curious about everything. And when you go in with that, that attitude and that mindset, then there really are no failures. It's just moving into different areas.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think that, that mindset of like adopting the learner mindset, right? Like when
Hmm.
you're going into a new situation or trying out something for the first time, it takes off the pressure when we can just say, I'm here to learn, I'm here to grow, I'm here to learn from the mistakes and take that moving forward to know what not to do or what to do differently. And it really, like for me personally, I find it really does take off the pressure of needing to be perfect, needing to know everything, needing to have
Right.
everything, having plans set out. It's like just the ability to just adapt is a great skill set to have with entrepreneurs because as you know, you're constantly adapting and reinventing and recreating what it is that you're
Hmm.
trying to do depending on the results that you're seeing.
Yeah.
um,
Yep. And
One
even
thing.
that word you're recreating, recreate or recreate, right? They're basically the same word. So if you can go into recreating with that aspect of bringing joy into it and never looking at it as something that you have to do, but it's a privilege. It's a gift that's been given. It's something that you get to do. It's a privilege, and as soon as it becomes a have to, and things start becoming more like a job, which I definitely went through my stages of that. And I'm sure a lot of your listeners have as well. When you perceive something as the ultimate success for you, you know, and it changes as your career changes. Like, wow, if I could just produce and write music for a living and not have any other side jobs, right? That's the initial dream in New York as I was waiting tables, like working security at night, whatever I had to do to get my studio going. And then that came into fruition. And I was, you know, working with major labels and recording artists. And, you know, suddenly it became a job where, you know, my 4 minute songs that I was having to produce were taking, you know, 100 hours in the recording studio. So, you know, I reached a kind of fork in my road where I was like, wow, what happened again to that 14-year-old kid who used to love sitting at the edge of his bed and just writing songs? I really need to redefine this and look at that. And that's really what led me to doing what you know, we now call more healing music. Was I was going through anxiety, sleeping challenges, definitely just monkey mind where, you know, your thoughts can't stop. And I was like, wow, something has to change here. So I did a little experiment. I said, I know that at the core, I want to reconnect with my heart, because this is where my vision, my soul purpose lies. And I did some research, and what I found was that our hearts at a relaxed state beat at about 60 beats per minute. So knowing that we can, of course, set our metronomes in music to a specific tempo, it's like, what would happen if I set my metronome to 60 beats per minute and target my heart at a relaxed state as I compose? And instead of trying to create a 4 minute song that had all these catchy hooks and choruses that people could remember, what would happen if I did the opposite and just let the music flow through me? And instead of composing, I called it the decompositional process, you know, just allowing myself to be connecting with something beyond myself and connecting to the unknown of not knowing exactly where this composition was going to go. And I started doing that, setting my metronome for 60 beats per minute. And I would just take these hour-long journeys, and then I would go back and I would add other layers on top of that musically, kind of like painting on a canvas where you have your initial painting and then you're adding colors and complementary, you know, blending specific colors. I was doing that with music. And to be honest with you, Mary, I didn't think anyone was going to listen to it
Really?
besides myself. You know, it was for me. It was like, who's going to listen to like hour-long pieces of music, you know, no melodies? You know, this was before really any of, you know, what we're calling, you know, sound healing. It existed, but very few people were doing it. We had a few pioneers, you know, Stephen Halpern, Jonathan Goldman, you know, your guys who have been around for a while, but it was not mainstream. You know, and the terms like electronic music didn't even really exist back then, or the terms heart coherence and the terminology we're using now. This was pre all of that stuff. You know, this was like the beginning of the 90s. So, um, you know, what I realized was happening was I was moving to very meditative states in this practice. And I found that I was moving out of those states of anxiety. And if I played back this music before sleep, you know, I would have better night's sleep. So I knew that for me, it was having positive effects. And so I shared it with a few people in my community. One of them was a massage therapist, and she started using it. You know, another friend of mine had a mom who had dementia, and their neighborhood in Harlem was very noisy. So she started listening to it before sleep. Another friend used it in a dentist's office when they were having root canals. And before I knew it, you know, I was getting these testimonials from people who were like, wow, this is amazing. You need to get this out there in a bigger way. And that was really the start of it. Was I was my own experiment. It succeeded with me. It started to ripple out. And that is what really made me realize that, wow, this can be a whole other chapter in terms of what I'm doing. And it literally rippled out, to writing a book and a lot of research behind it. And over the last 30 years, since then, it's diversified and reinvented itself several times.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And I would say that like there is so much healing in music. In terms of like, entrepreneurs that I coach, one of the things that they struggle with is really overthinking, which,
Right.
right? Like overthinking to the point where you just can't fall asleep, like your mind won't shut down. And the music that you produce, I think personally for me, when the monkey mind starts up in me, somehow it has just these healing properties to them, where you're really able to just get yourself into a different realm, if I can say. It's like a, I don't know how to explain it, but it's certainly related to like that the frequency of the music that really does start slowing down your mind and gets you into a more meditative state. Now, I'm curious, did you meditate prior to your experimentation with music? And
A little bit, but music became my meditative state. So what I realized in the process of that, and on a spiritual level, there, that bringing awareness in that I was co-creating with something beyond myself. When you just let something come through you, and you're tapping into an unlimited field of all potential. So obviously, as musicians, we all have a signature, based on our history of what we've learned and what we've taught ourselves and how we've developed our expertise. But I think it's a blend of that when you're combining that again with something beyond yourself, whether you call that God, Christ consciousness, the universe, nature, it doesn't really matter. And most inventors, most of people who have changed our world, like Albert Einstein, for example, very much, knew that most of the answers were not coming from him, and they were coming from something beyond himself. And actually, he was a musician. And when he would have blocks in terms of his work, he would either sit behind a piano and play chords on the piano, or he'd pick up his violin. And his family wrote memoirs about Albert Einstein. They would hear him from the other room going, "Oh my God, I got it. I got it." So when he would utilize music as a tool to get out of that thinking analytical mind and to tap into, something greater, and just allow his own mind to slow down. And what happens with that, we know the science behind that, what I was doing, but I didn't know at the time, when I was targeting my heart at a relaxed state, and I was able to adapt to that 60 beats per minute, and my heart was synchronizing to that. That's what we call entrainment. So entrainment is when an internal rhythm has the ability to synchronize with an external rhythm that it adapts to. So the metronome of our heart can adapt to the timing of music. And when it does, and it moves to that relaxed state, this is what's called heart coherence. So it moves into these smooth, orderly patterns in your heart that are very coherent, right? What I'm doing with my hand is very much like what they show in the EKGs. And the heart's rhythms basically put us in this state that's called the parasympathetic state, when we move into those slower rhythms. And that's where our body can move into repair and recuperation and restoration, because it's giving the rest of our system these coherent signals. So if you think of the heart basically as a conductor of the inner orchestra, and the different systems of our body are the different parts of an orchestra that are within the whole orchestra, right? So you have your rhythm section, you might have your strings, your brass. So what would happen if they all decided to play whatever they wanted to right, at whatever tempo they wanted to, what you would hear would be really dissonant and discoherent. But when they all can agree upon a specific tempo and a specific key, then they're going to operate in conjunction and synchrony with each other. And ultimately, that's what we call health, right? When everything is moving in optimal harmony within our body, that's called health. So even just adapting music and being able to target specific tempos can not just affect our mental and emotional state, which most people, we know that, right? Music can affect our mental and emotional state. Most people are not as aware that it can actually create changes in our physical body, in our stress hormones. It can reduce our cortisol levels. It can increase our dopamine, which is our reward, hormones and neurotransmitters. So all of these have effect on how our physical body adapts to stress and how resilient we are. So that heart coherence was what I was tapping into in my early experiment of me without even knowing what it was. And as I began to research, what we also see is that when your heart is slowing down and your breathing is slowing down and you're moving into this relaxed, almost trance-like state, that your brain waves, so you talked about the entrepreneurs having these very busy minds. So most of the time when we're in those states, we're in beta brainwave states, right? So those are the busy brain waves. And when we start to slow down, we move into alpha, then we move into theta. So alpha is more a relaxed and attentive state that you can reach through meditation. Theta is when you're going even deeper and you're in a state of daydreaming and you're in that zone, so to speak. And then from there, you're going into delta, which is where we have our REM and sleep states. So music, when we're in those heart coherent states, our brain waves start to slow down into alpha. And that's really where most entrepreneurs get all the great stuff. All their ideas are not always in the analytical mind. Yeah, that's part of the process, right? Is gathering information, doing diligence, researching your competition, right? All of those things that entrepreneurs do. But where I call, the gumbo and the spice comes in is when you're incorporating all that, and then you can let it go and surrender and slow your brain waves down. And music, especially the music that I'm doing for meditation, for relaxation, can really help entrepreneurs in slowing down that monkey mind so that they can integrate. It's great. Use that all those that brainstorming and then change your channel into heart storming, right? So, you're moving your thinking mind into your more wisdom-based mind. And that's the heart is all about wisdom. It's the knowing without knowing. The thing when you get an idea and you're like, oh my God, I don't know where that came from. But oh man, that's like a great idea. And then you go back and forth, you go, okay, well, let me look into this. Is anyone else doing it? You take your ideas that you got in those slower mind wave states and you move it into more focused thinking. So it's not a matter of what's good or bad. It's a matter of when you want to use it and using music as a bridge to get there. So, if you ask yourself the three most important questions, for anyone listening today is, where am I now emotionally? Where do I want to go? So what's my state that I'd like to upgrade to? So if I can upgrade my vibration in some way, what would that be? What would that look like for me? And then what piece of music is going to take me there? And music can be a bridge for you. So it's not always listening to relaxing music. If you want to be in creative state, maybe you want to listen, to Happy by Pharrell or, whatever your happy song is. So it's really plugging in, ancient meets modern, and science meeting spirituality and really being able to mix it all together to create your own recipe for what music looks like in your life and your success.
Yeah, I've never heard it explained that way before. It's that's
A
beautiful.
long-winded explanation. Sorry about that.
No, it was an amazing one. And just the idea that music can really be a bridge that will allow you to get to, from where you are to where you want to go, depending on the intentions of what you want to be feeling, whether it's excited or relaxed or, want to go into a sleep state. I think that, maybe music isn't leveraged enough for say people like entrepreneurs who do want to tap into their creativity, and it sounds like tapping into creativity isn't the beta state. It's more, right? Is that, did I understand that
Well,
correctly?
like I
It's
said, there could be different stages of it.
yeah,
Those initial stages where researching and investigating and gathering information is part of the creative state. It just really depends what your creative state is. Some people don't like to do that till after they get their great ideas, so we don't all have the same creative state. There are probably the same components to them, but where we plug them in and how we create a program for them is what differentiates us. And the same thing with music, like what you said was right on, that it's how are we intentionally using music, right? Because we've all had experiences where music has affected us in a profound way. I won't say all, but I will say probably
yeah,
a majority of us have has had music in our lives where we go, oh my God, when I heard that song, then blank, 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 right? Or that song changed my life. Or always remember that song. That was my first kiss
yeah,
when that song was playing. But the differentiation is those most of them are random experiences that happen to us. When we realize that music's not just something that's happening to us, but it's something that's happening in us. We have music going on in our heartbeat, our breath, right? We have different frequencies that resonate throughout our body. And you're just really, when you are enjoying a piece of music or not enjoying a piece of music, you're either finding that it's harmonious to your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual body, or it's not. So we're constantly making judgments based on how it feels to us, not just how it hears. It's also how it feels in our body. When you say, oh, I got God bumps or goosebumps or chills when I hear that song, that didn't happen in your ears, right? That was a physical effect. Or I moved into a trance when I heard that song. I don't even know where I went. Or the other way around, when I heard that song, it felt like someone was scratching their nails on a board. I couldn't listen to it for more than 30 seconds. So
right.
this is where we become literally the sound healers of our own lives. And when we can take that information that's speaking to our body and say, wow, that's wow, I never thought of music in that way, that we're not just listening with our ears, but we're listening with every aspect of our senses when we hear it. And then we're able to say, what would happen if I moved beyond letting it just happen to me randomly? And I incorporated a program to navigate my energy wherever I wanted it to go. If I plug this in, like if I said to you, Mary, I want you to look at your schedule for the next week, and wherever you're seeing something that is you feel might need some help energetically, what piece of music would I plug into before I do this or after I do this? So maybe like you have a meeting, a coaching sessions with one of your clients. I'm just throwing this at you. Maybe they're one of your more challenging clients,
Right. Yeah.
and you want to be in a more patient state for them because they tend to trigger some of your things
Okay.
energetically. What piece of music would allow you to be more patient? Maybe it's you want to listen to a more relaxing piece of music because they're very high, high energy, and you want them to tap into and pick up on your energy, that space you're holding for them in the session. Or maybe it's the other way around, and your client really is one that you resonate with, a very high energy, and you want to work with him or her to find that next thing for them and give them great input. Maybe you want to listen to a piece of like epic music or something really fun before it. So look at your schedule, and this is for anyone listening. We schedule everything else. Why are you not scheduling your music to navigate your energy? Maybe you have something going on with a family member that you have to visit in the hospital in the afternoon. And that might be something that is like an energy vampire. It kind of takes your energy. If you know going into that, would you listen to a piece of music that centers you, or something afterwards that allows you to tap back into your own energy, almost like a vibrational shower? And at night, before you go to sleep, like, what are you doing to process your day? What are you doing to tap into something amazing, something that you can bring gratitude into your life about in the evening, or something that was challenging for you, but is it possible that you can draw a lesson from that in some aspect, and journal with music as you're doing all this, so that you're processing your thoughts? Because what happens at sleep is most of us move into that monkey mind, right? Because we're still firing and wiring our brain with thousands of thoughts before we go to sleep. We're still on Instagram, and we're still editing our YouTube videos, or, we're studying for our presentation tomorrow. And that puts you in that high beta end of your brain, and you're looking to go to delta, right? Which is over here. So you have these brain waves that need to slow down beforehand, but most people aren't doing that. So there's nothing bridging them. And so they get to sleep pretty quickly because they're so tired. And then they wake up a couple of hours later because those thoughts just are still going. They didn't process them. So if you can process them with yourself and use music to do that, and start some practices, where you're connecting to the gratitude of the lessons that you've learned and some of the amazing things that happen in your day, then you're going to sleep with a fresh slate, and you're waking up like with a brand new day. You're not waking up with the same energy of yesterday and the same things that you're thinking about over and over again. And so again, you're using music to navigate energy. And we only have so much energy in our lives. And I'm sure you coach people on this all the time. If you're not taking care of your own energy, then at the end of your day, you don't have anything to feed into your mission, into your passion, into your purpose. So music's like this power tool. It's not just art and entertainment. It's something that can literally change your life. It could amplify your dreams. We talk about this in, the entrepreneurial cultures, 10 timing. What does it look like to 10 time your investment? It's the same thing, right? If your money is just energy. So what is your emotional investment in your life? And if you're putting in, this amount of money or this amount of energy into your life, and you're not seeing that amplify, and you're not seeing it, magnify and multiply as you feed your purpose, then you're not managing your energy. In some cases, you're not managing your money. It's the same thing, right? If you're not managing your money, what do? You bring in an expert to look at your office. Where am I spending too much? Where am I not spending enough? Now, why are we not doing that with our energy? Like, where are we spending our energy? Are you spending it in relationships you're giving your energy away to? Or are you surrounding yourself with an amazing team that is multiplying your energy that you put in and amplifying it? So when you start bringing this awareness in to your day and where you've spent energy, where you received energy, you can start to budget it more effectively towards your purpose and your passion, and less on things that are draining you.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And I think that sometimes we just don't take an inventory of where our energy
Mhm.
is being spent. So when we're drained at the end of the day, we're not going back thinking, where in my day did I not enjoy that? Where can
Right.
I be doing less of that? And I think, tapping back into like your heart coherence and really understanding like, what do I actually want? Like sometimes we don't even ask ourselves the question of what is it that we actually want, not what do others think I should do or should have, or like sometimes
Mhm.
we're just trying to keep up with expectations of others upon us and that's how I find a lot of entrepreneurs start losing energy. It's because they're not really doing the things that's within their creative zone of genius, within their area of interest and their passion. Like when you went and you started researching music and how to create healing music. Like you were like no one told you to do it. You were genuinely interested. You had a problem, you were suffering with some anxiety. So there are things that, you were curious about within yourself and you were seeking out solutions out of curiosity to solve your own problem. And then out of love to solve that problem for others. So I think that like when we're looking at energy, I think that people have to really tap into where they actually are enjoying, like what state are you in when you're actually enjoying spending
Mhm.
that energy, right? Like we know when something takes up a lot of energy, but we love it. And when something takes up a lot of energy and it drains us. And that also goes for people, right? People we get in connection with and we're like, wow, we're feeding off of each other's energy. And other
That's
people where
right.
it's just like an energy drainer. And where can music help me when I'm about to have an encounter with someone that I know takes my energy? You know?
Right. And we can entrain to others' emotions as well, negatively and positively, as well. So you're absolutely right. It's taking inventory of all that. And that's where the consciousness comes in. It's knowing, okay, where did this go down another road? Where did I take a right turn or a left turn where my day didn't feel like it started out for some reason?
Right.
And that's why I call it musical nourishment, because if you only ate breakfast and you found your energy being depleted at 1 o'clock and you're like, oh my God, I haven't eaten lunch, no wonder I don't have any energy left, right? So there's an awareness there that you need to nourish yourself for energy. And it's really the same thing with our energy, in terms of we have an energetic system. I'm going to get a little bit down the, what some might think of the woo path, but it's really not, because these are, again, where ancient and modern meet. Our energetic system are called our energy centers, or our chakras, and we're learning more and more about how they work in terms of being an intellectual system similar to our digestive system, that digest food, and we don't have to like chew on a piece of food and say, okay, I'm going to chew you now, right? Now you're going to go down my esophagus, right? And then we're going to break that down with some, different chemicals that we have in our body. Then, oh, can you then go to my stomach, right? And then into my intestines, whatever it is. No, right? There's an intellectual system that's moving within our digestive system, and it's similar with our energy centers or our chakras. We have specific energies that are allocated to different energy centers. Think of your throat very, very simply, right? The throat is the energy center that gears with communication issues, right? Or it's all about being heard, acknowledged, and appreciated. So, for example, if you have a situation in your day where you're feeling that you're not heard, or if you were told as a child it's better that you're seen and not heard, and you carry that with you through your life and through your day, and then your boss, you have this great idea, and your boss, says, "Oh, I don't have time to listen right now," what's going to happen if you don't have an awareness that you have a specific issue that relates to that specific energy center? You might take it very personally. That might be very draining energetically for you in your day. And you might feel really hurt by it. And that might be a drama for you where you're carrying it into something else in your day that you're taking into your home life. And now there's one thing that happened created this effect where it rippled into your whole day, and now all your energy feels depleted. Right? So these energy centers are all about our emotional energies, a person, place, thing, situation, event, or energy that comes into our life. And whether we release it or we are blocked by it, ultimately can affect our energetic flow. And if that happens enough times, it could actually result in the physical body, right? A dis-ease of flow. So when they're open and aligned, you have all this flow. But, as you know, if you carry a lot of stress in your body, at first it might not, it might not feel like anything, but that can move into headaches, right? And
That's for
your
me.
physical body, right? And how does that then affect the rest of your body in terms of it create high blood pressure maybe for you, which then affects something else in your body. So our thoughts and our energy are basically rippling out and constantly speaking to our physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, connectivity throughout. And so these energy centers, and working with those, which is a lot of where the focus of my work has been and is going to a lot of my courses this year, is to bring more awareness behind that and bring it more into mainstream in terms of how do we work with our energy system, within our health. How does it relate to our four bodies? How do these energy centers relate to hormones in our body? How do they relate to, their plexuses of energy that interact with our physical body? How does that work? And so I think that's where we're talking about in terms of tracking down and doing inventory. We're really just scratching the surface, right? Because if you really want to do inventory, you have to know which of these energy centers are open and expansive and where energy is flowing, and which ones might be blocked, and how you can use sound to identify and release those blocks that you may be holding so that you can attune, just like you attune a guitar that has 6 strings. And when it's in tune, it plays, plays beautifully. When it's out of tune, the most beautiful handmade guitar could sound like you bought it in a pawn shop. So it's the same thing with working with these energy centers. So for those listeners that are more interested in that, and really want to minutely amplify their and look at their energy and take inventories so that they can amplify it. I invite you to look at some of the videos I have on YouTube, or some of the courses that I'm doing with the Shift Network that are coming up, on my website, because that's my mission, is how you can use music to magnify your mission. But if you don't know where your energy's going and you keep spending it in the same way, you're going to hit a roadblock. And no matter where you are on your skill level or your mastery, I don't care, like if you're the top coach in the world, I don't care if you're Anthony Robbins, right? Or you're the Dalai Lama. I'm sure the Dalai Lama will probably fess up to that maybe even more easily than Anthony Robbins. But there's always a level where you can fine tune more incrementally. And this, I've just seen this too, because you and I went to an event together, where there were a lot of life coaches there. And what I saw was that every life coach has a life coach,
Yes.
right?
Every
And no
good
matter
life,
what,
every good life coach has a life
and a
coach.
good life coach, right? So no, and that's exactly what I'm saying, right? So no matter where you are, even if you're the top one on that tier, that person still knows that they can fine tune and they're not going to be able to do it by themselves. We all need help in terms of helping us with that awareness. So,
Yeah, I agree. I agree. That's beautiful. So you mentioned a couple of areas where people can go if they want to know a little bit more about you and your courses and your work. You mentioned we'll link it all up below in the description. The best place for people to follow you would be your website, Instagram. Where's the best place where they can go?
yeah, I mean, my website is very easy to be found as barrygoldsteinmusic.com. And that does have a lot of, connections to where my courses are as well. In addition, this would be of interest to entrepreneurs that are watching. I just launched a website and a branding component for entrepreneurs of musical branding called Sonic Signatures. So it's www.sonic-signatures.com, and it really looks at how you could differentiate yourself across your different platforms, creating your own sound. Like what would your YouTube channel sound like? What would your Instagram platform sound like? TikTok. People on TikTok know 9 out of 10 TikTok users are using some type of sonic branding because they know the importance of it. So it's geared towards that. And my courses, are going to be offered as well on the Shift Network, which is a great network for all things that are spiritually based and transformational leadership workshops. If you're interested in that realm, you can find me there as well.
Very nice. And I believe you also have a retreat coming up in Costa Rica in the new year.
I do. Thank you for that. See that? You must be in the marketing world.
I did pay attention.
Yeah. So if you go to globalj.org,
Mhm.
my wife, who is an amazing researcher, formulator for nutraceuticals, and a naturopathic medical doctor, and I are doing a retreat March 3rd to the 9th, which I didn't tell you falls into my birthday. So it's like a birthday retreat called Harmonious Health. And it's where music and medicine converge together to create optimal health and well being. And it's going to be Costa Rica and the beauty of the ocean, not just another retreat. It's really going to be very heart centered, very experiential, very much next steps. Like if you're in a place and you're looking to move into your next chapter, whatever that is, then this will be a great platform to do that.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. That's amazing. And Barry, thank you. I appreciate this amazing interview and the wealth of knowledge and wisdom that you have graciously shared with everybody. And I know that you are a big giver and you want to leave our audience with something to listen to. Did you want to do that?
I did, yeah. So we've been talking about music a lot. And of course, music is something that goes beyond description. And I just wanted to tap into the group energy of whoever's listening today and just allow a composition to come through based on the energy of what might be needed for you today. And I invite you to receive it, but allow yourself to go inward and to listen in a new way, not just with your ears, but allow yourself to receive it in your heart. So, as I start to play, if it's comfortable for you to close your eyes, place your hands on your heart, set an intention for yourself. Again, music's that bridge. Where are you right now in your life or in this moment? Where do you want to go to? And allow the music to take you there. And if you feel like journaling afterwards, you're welcome to do that as well. I'll gently call you back in so it's not abrupt as I finish, and then Mary will kind of conclude and finish up. So
Good. Let's do it.
awesome. So yeah, just take a deep breath in as I'm kind of switching channels here. And just give yourself a big exhale through your heart, and we'll begin in a moment. And just give yourself a big breath in through your heart and a big breath out. And whatever intention you have on your exhale, big breath in, just send that out into the world.
Thank you, Barry. That was beautiful. You know, when I met you, um, there was this aura of calmness about you. And as I listened to the music that you just played for us, that same calmness that I felt when I first met you, I felt it in the music as well. So I think
Oh,
that's really music that you embody, and it really lives through you and your essence. So I want to
oh,
thank you for that beautiful gift.
you're welcome. See, I told you I would make you cry. And
Yeah. the best of ways. Oh, I appreciate you very so much, and the world appreciates you. I've
Oh,
listened to a lot of your videos, and I've read a lot of the comments, and Barry is someone that everybody needs a Barry in their life. So thank you for the music that you put out and devoting your life to the betterment of other people, to the healing of other people. That's truly beautiful. Thank you.
well, thank you for noticing.
Right back at you. That's awesome. Okay, all right, Barry. Till we meet again, and I hope that'll be very soon. Thank you very much for your time, and until we meet again, thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you for all you're doing as well.
Thanks.